Hi, Liz.
Hey, Kathleen. It looks like people are joining us now. Sorry, we're a couple of minutes late. It's been a wild week. How was your
Yeah.
Thanksgiving?
Oh, my Thanksgiving was really lovely. My son is 2.5, and he loved everything to do with Thanksgiving. He had like his little turkey hat, and he loved the meal. How about you? How's the weather and everything down where you are?
Mood today.
That's what I was seeing. One of my clients said it snowed in their area.
Yeah, it's very cold, but cozy also.
Good.
So,
Awesome. Well, we've got a lot of people joining, and Liz and I were so excited to prepare this for you because we are going to refocus you and give you really, really actionable things to do every single week. So, this is not, I also kind of want to talk about this, Liz, before we even get started, that this is not a make or break time, right? Like the kind of businesses you're building, and really where I think jewelry is going, where we are working with so many more self purchasers, the holidays are no longer like the end all be all. Like that's the businesses we want you to be building, that they are really connection based businesses, concierge style businesses. And we're not like at this frantic, Q4 holidays where you make up your entire year. So just giving you, like, if you need to kind of sprinkle some forgiveness over yourself, that like maybe you're like, also it's 2020, right? So like if you're still standing, we are here celebrating you. And I think to just know that we're here to talk about, actionable things to do the next 3 weeks, but also know, like I was speaking with one of my former students, she was saying like, Kathleen, I'm booking into January now. Like I'm taking custom commissions for February. In fact, a lot of my people who are self-purchasers want to kind of put a little deposit down and work together in the new year. So just, I think sometimes in our industry, and some when there's Cyber Monday and Black Friday and Giving Tuesday and like ads and ads and ads and ads and ads, it kind of feels like this is the only time. But I also want to just like we're going to tell you some things to do. So it's not to say we don't want you to show up to your shop and like really give it your all right now, but also know that January, I found, Liz, and I don't know your experience, but I found January for some of my clients to be really busy.
it can be surprising, and like we don't know what's going to go this year. And I think that's something we need to keep reminding ourselves. It's been flying by. I can't believe Thanksgiving just happened. I can't believe we're, December 1st already. And also, I'm guessing a lot of you are selling to self purchasers. So that's just another thing to keep in mind. That specific Christmas deadline isn't as important anymore. We're not living in such a traditional world. We're not as traditional of an industry anymore.
I love that. So just giving you, again, like if you have family, if like you've been homeschooling, if this holiday didn't seem like it was going to, is if your year to date doesn't look like you expected it to, just knowing that there is still time, one, in this holiday season, but two, later on too. So I think that there's just like so much pressure right now this time of year. And I love that you just said that, Liz. Like a lot of the people in the room are not traditional jewelers in the sense that they're like brick and mortar retailers. But I also think we then start to lump ourselves into e-commerce, and you start to kind of read about e-commerce and the trends and like, oh my gosh, I should be running a sale, or my volume should be up here. But I think jewelers are like this crazy subset of e-commerce as well, which doesn't really like match the stats that we see in other industries. So like this is a big mindset reframing for you, that we're going to give you things to do, but also like take some deep breaths. We're setting your business up. And actually, when Liz and I were like talking about the subject of today, we were like, what could we teach right now? But really, this is a two-parter, right? Like we're going to teach you some tactical things to do right now, but what we're really doing is giving you skills for 2021 so you can really just have an excellent plan to execute on. So next holiday season, one of my clients just closed her books on all holidays. October 30th was the last day to order. I was like, wow, that's awesome. And she's had a great Q4 and into, already booking people into January and February. So that's like where we're getting you to for, 2021.
Let's also mention to everyone what we were just talking about, and why we were a couple minutes late is we were talking about how hard it is to sell. This is not an easy thing. You can't just, flick a switch and be selling online. It's a constant consistent process that you need to work on.
Totally. And we can also tell, like, I love that, Liz, you brought up like the behind the scenes. The behind the scenes is tech doesn't always work. I had like a new camera that I totally am digging, and all of a sudden it froze. So that's another reason we're late. So I think it's just important too to kind of show you that behind the scenes, that like there's always kind of something that can hold you back from showing up live. There's always like technology won't do what you want it to do. But it's really important, you know, and I love that, Liz, you just brought that up, but it's, if you had, and I always like to say this, like if you had a retail location, you would be showing up every day. You probably have expanded your hours, for example, this time of year. So, you know, it's really important to be not just posting and kind of ghosting during this time, but actually engaging. You know, I always love to say your best clients are the ones you have. So who do you have? And we'll go through some like really tactical things today, but I love, Liz, that you brought that up. It is work. It is a skill. Just like you would never go to your bench and like expect to be able to bezel set an emerald. You would never like kind of just show up and feel like you could just sell virtually without practice, without getting in the arena. You know, I think making mistakes, seeing what works, seeing what lands. We'll talk a little bit about objections, and then next month we'll also talk about pricing to just give you a little future preview as well.
Yeah, and something to also just mention real quick is that with the infection rate going up and everything happening in the world, brick and mortars like Estelle's are closed or moving to appointment only. Mm-hmm. So online is more important than ever.
Totally. And like hybridized online, right? It's not, and I think that this is where it's easy to get lumped into like e-commerce, like, and read stats of like, you know, and I work pretty much exclusively with like higher end jewelers who are selling $2,500 and above pieces. So, you know, when we are, you know, if you're in that $50 range, some of the kind of more common e-commerce stats apply, like this much traffic should lead to this kind of conversion rate. But when we step into more personalized, like higher end jewelry, it really is about not just being virtual, but being like in this beautiful conversation, relationship building with your clients.
Yep. Yes, definitely. So let's dive in and start talking about this week. So it's December 1st. It's not too late to do any of the things we're talking about. We plotted out week by week for the next 3 weeks of things you can actually do to help your sales. And also, I want to mention, feel free to leave a comment. We'll answer comments when it makes sense or at the end, but feel free to chime in. So first off, if you haven't already, make sure you know exactly what your order by date is if you're still taking custom orders, which a lot of you might not be doing at this point. And then also make sure you know your final ship date and make sure you're communicating that to your clients. This year should be interesting because you should add a couple more days for shipment just to guarantee by the 25th if somebody's looking to get something by the 25th, just because it's been said that postal service might be a bit slower. So that's just something to consider. These are things you definitely want to define.
And I would also like kind of think through what I like to call your high-end comeback. Like this year is a year like no other, but not just for you, for everybody. So people, especially if you're preceding a lot of these things, like if you're having these upfront conversations with people, it's going to make it so much easier if shipping is delayed and it's not there on Christmas Day. You know, just really start to actually think through some worst case scenarios. This is going to sound a little dramatic, but we're almost in like crisis planning at this moment in time, which I guess is like, it isn't that dramatic. It's the truth of where we are. So start to think through some worst case scenarios. Say, you know, you and I were just talking before this, that Cutler just had a cyber attack. Like it's crazy to think about, but that is, you know, a real potential of, you know, your suppliers, what's going on with the supply chain, what's going on with the post office. And I find that when you communicate with your clients, and most of the people you guys ending up working with are really, really great people. They love artisans. That's why they're seeking out artisan level goods. So when you can like connect with them on that person to person level, that's really where it can make a huge difference. If you come into a situation where, oh my gosh, this was supposed to be there by Christmas and it's not, if you have kind of already thought through what you're going to say, that can make a huge difference with how you feel and then how you communicate that with your clients. So that's like something to start to think about. As Liz is saying, we need to know our dates. We need to communicate our dates on Instagram, for example, at the bottom. having a little like a PS is really, really good. Like, we can't repeat this enough. You can put it on every single post until, New Year's Eve, and it won't be too much information. I think it's really easy to assume that people understand what shipment dates are, et cetera, but we need to be as explicit as possible.
And don't feel like you're repeating yourself. This is a conversation I have often with designers. It's like, do repeat yourself. You have to. I know it feels repetitive to you. It feels repetitive to me when I continue to say the same thing over and over again too. But every time I say it, I engage a new person who didn't see it the first time. So that's something to remember. There's so much content being thrown at us. We want to stand out and continue to reiterate our message.
And I love that, Liz. And like I can't give credit where credit's due, but someone like said as a reframe of that, when you feel repetitive, that you're actually just like brilliantly on brand, right? Like you're brilliantly, when you are saying the same things over and over, it's like, oh, okay, this is Liz and Kathleen. I know what they'll be talking about. It's kind of the same thing they are always talking about, but they'll bring a different angle. So just have the same thing. Like I really think, especially if you are moving towards that higher end artisan, or if you are like more artisan type jewelry, you want to be known for being easy to work with, communicative. So it starts, and we'll talk a little bit about overcoming objections, but it really begins way before someone makes that purchase with you, and it's really building that trust. So the more you can kind of hyper communicate about dates, expectations, et cetera, and then also on the back end start to plan out, if something doesn't arrive in time, do you have the capacity to, if they're local, deliver a bottle of wine and some champagne glasses? Do you have the capacity to, design a quick little, um, you know, elves are working on your piece PDF and get that ready to send an email so someone could print it out on the other end? Just starting to think through. And also, I have a mentor who always says, like, you just need to crack a big can of forgiveness and like sprinkle it all over yourself this year. So I think the more you can be doing this pre-planning and stay really calm when things don't go well, like my camera freezing, at 4 o'clock, the more you can, just feel really confident in moving forward.
Yeah, it's going to be okay. It's 2020. And we need to be kind to ourselves just in general, but also with our business. And also, another thing is that we're going to be talking through these to-dos. I will email them out to all of you so you have access to what we're reading through now, because we don't have a PowerPoint or anything to show, but you will get access to this in a follow-up email along with the replay. And again, feel free to ask questions or leave comments. So speaking of on brand and repetitive, you've heard this from me a million times, but something you should do this week is show your face. It's so important that your potential clients see you, especially since so many in-person events aren't happening and stores might be closed. Having that conversation, people looking into your eyes and seeing you talk to them is so important. So this week, say hello to your audience, reintroduce your brand, or maybe talk about some of your favorite pieces, show your daily jewels. Think about how you can talk to your audience, whether it be on Instagram stories or doing an IGTV. I think this is really important.
I love that. And like breaking it down, right? Like these are the 3 pieces I'm loving right now. Like these make really good gifts. Like I think that so much we don't have to reinvent the wheel on. So start to think through, like if you're reading through kind of an editorial magazine, they have like gifts for moms, gifts for your daughter, gifts for dads, like gifts for newlyweds, gifts for, grandmas, like starting to kind of curate. Like I like to kind of say, when we curate these little collections, they could be 3 to 5 pieces, they could be kind of 6 to 10 pieces, depending on how, involved you want to get. But when we're building out these little mini collections, start to think through, if you were an editor of a magazine, what pieces would you pull from your collection? If you're doing one for new moms, for example, you might pull something that, has birthstones in it. You might pull some like stud earrings because, they aren't probably wearing hoops. Like I haven't worn many earrings in the 2.5 years my son's been alive because he, I'll often take these off as soon as I get home. Like, how can you start to curate these little mini collections that make shopping really easy? Because that, Liz, you brought it up, and I think Estelle brought it up as well. When we're missing the in-person experience, we don't want to, as Seth Godin says, we don't want to out Amazon. We're not Amazon. We'll never be this kind of like big, vast warehouse of goods. And that's a great thing. So the more you can curate, the more you can make it really, really easy, like kind of a slam dunk purchases and really explain why they'd be really great for your clients, that's really where you can, yeah, just really like make those sales.
Yeah, and I was thinking this Saturday was Small Business Saturday, this past Saturday, and I saw so many amazing posts from artists introducing themselves, talking about their brand, talking about the passion behind what they do. And I all I could think was, I wish designers would do this more regularly because it was a lot for me to consume in one day. And I loved all of it, but I was like, do this every month or do this, check in with your audience and say hello often. So even if you did say hello and introduce yourself on Small Business Saturday, do it again, just to kind of cut through the noise and just to keep showing up.
Oh, I love that. And I love to, just that idea of like, it's never too much. And I think that as artists, we can kind of feel like, oh my God, everyone knows this. Again, this is so repetitive, but Liz and I are here to rebrand that for you as on brand, right? So it's like less repetitive, more just on brand, and more just kind of continuously explaining and showcasing the pieces you do and curating these little mini collections. And I think, Liz, you had a really great point, that in our prep, that your website should also start to reflect this as well. And I love, like, I spent many holiday seasons in a retail location, and we would be doing this, right? Like we would be putting together little collections, pulling out, putting things that we thought people would love in the front, lighting a candle, putting out some holiday flowers, re-merchandising the windows. So think of your website in that same way. So do you need to kind of pull through some of these collections? Like these are the ready to gift things, especially in stock, really featuring what's in stock on your website and what's in stock on your Instagram. Um, on your website, reminding people of that final ship date, like having that kind of everywhere. I love, a live chat type of thing this time of year, or, directing people to DM. But it's really, I think this is, I love, Liz, that you kind of framed this conversation this way. But this is work. Like this is the type of businesses you guys are building are really not a post it and people click the buy button kind of business. We're not trying to think of all the things I buy a lot that way, but like at that, $40 to $100 price point where I'm like, oh, Instagram ad, I have to have this. But with jewelry, it's really going to be a conversation. And something I'd love for you to do, in addition to when you're writing out kind of your crisis plan, your like PR plan of when things go awry, as they might do for this holiday season, I'd love for you to kind of also write out your most common objections that you're hearing, because the sales will happen in these conversations. They won't necessarily happen, again, by someone seeing something beautiful and clicking like that big red buy button, or they'll abandon a cart and you'll never know why. But in these conversations, this is really where you'll be actually closing the sales. And I think I kind of want to rebrand, here we are just rebranding everything, Liz. But I want to rebrand objections as questions. I think people really feel like if there's an objection on price, or there's an objection on materials, or there's just, all these different kind of objections, where will I wear this? Do I deserve to buy this for myself? That people get really, the designers I often work with really feel like that is like a reason they don't want to buy. But if someone doesn't want to buy, you know what they're going to do? They're just not going to engage. They're going to ghost. So they won't be engaging with you at all. So when people have objections, currently rebranded as questions, that's a really, really good sign. So playing around, with a friend to get comfortable with objections, reframing in your mind these conversations in DM, and really setting aside time where you're truly dedicated, first thing in the morning to follow up with any existing DM conversations. And then, kind of at the end of your day, following up just as if you were at a trade show, just as if you had you were at a fair, just as if you were in a retail location. It's really easy, we're in the virtual space, to just feel like if we like post something on Instagram, people will buy. But it's just like having a booth at a very popular show and sitting on your phone all the time, like, and not actually looking up and talking to people.
Yeah, definitely. I think acknowledging objections and kind of being aware of what objections you get often is such a good way to prepare for sales and selling. And I think that it's not always price is something that you'll notice. A lot of times you're talking to handcrafted fine jewelry designers and you're like, oh, yeah, they thought it was too expensive. But that's not always really what the person's saying. Sometimes it's, oh, they are doing renovation in their house or they have a trip plan, not necessarily this year, but there's a lot of reasons people say no to something. And I think, Kathleen, you said before, it's really them asking for you to give them a reason to buy it, right?
Permission, and I think that, like, I love to kind of say when I'm teaching about objections in particular that it's really never truly about price. Sometimes it will be, like, your clients, especially, the people I work with are in what I like to call the upward spiral. They are moving into like higher price points and they're attracting more affluent collectors. So, they're in that upward spiral. There are people who will no longer be able to afford your pieces. And I think it's a hard threshold when you no longer can afford your pieces, or your friends can no longer afford your pieces, or your family. And like, there's a lot of mindset stuff that kind of comes in that moment. So sometimes it is about price, right? They had a $80 budget and your pieces start at $800. So like sometimes it is about price, and you can let people go. Your jewelry isn't for everybody. So also, though, if you have people saying like, oh, wow, that's too expensive, it sometimes is people looking, they just need a moment to digest the price. Like, they were surprised by the pricing. You need to kind of look through those common objections and start, as Liz always teaches, start almost overcoming objections in everything that you do. Like, look at the frequently asked questions you get. And are you creating little videos around that? Are you saving them as highlights? Like, we call it like your word wardrobe. Do you have, like, it's basically like objection proofing your business. Do you know why your prices are what they are? Like, what sets you apart? What level of craftsmanship do you offer? What level of stone sourcing do you offer? What is your own educational background? Like, what inspires these pieces? Like, when you start to understand these things and you're sharing it consistently, when someone sees a price tag, they'll say, oh, of course. Oh, I thought it'd be less. You almost need to, and this is a big thing we talk about a lot, Liz, as people are headed into that higher price point. You sometimes are the hardest sell. Like, if you don't believe in your pricing, you will never convince someone. And it's not even about convincing, but you'll never be able to, kind of share the prices that you have if you haven't even sold yourself on why they're priced as they are.
Yeah, and I know this is like soon to mention, but we're planning a pricing webinar for early next year to kind of work on all of this mindset stuff when it comes to pricing, because I know that's a big thing for people, so that next year you start off feeling confident in your pricing all year and you don't have to kind of do some quick work at the end of the year.
100%. And I think with this too, like, another assignment for this next week, so now through Sunday, is go back through your DMs and see where you might have dropped the ball. And again, this is like crack open a big can of forgiveness and forgive yourself if you've dropped the ball, but start to identify, oh, this conversation kind of petered out because they asked about price and I told the price and then they never responded. Like, starting to like put on your scientist hat and start to self-diagnose in your DM conversations, and continuously reframing that this is just like in person. You have all the skills. It's just kind of revamping some of the strategies that you've been using. But in our notes that you guys will see, it's like treating objections like a fun video game. We often talk, Liz, you and I, about like it being this like game of tennis, this like lobbing back and forth when you are in DM with someone. Or even you should see Liz and I when we walk the trade show floor, when we used to walk the trade show floors. Liz is an amazing salesperson. I mean, you guys
I
know.
love selling in person. It is hard to translate online. I'm not going to lie to you. It's really challenging, but yeah, you can pick that ball back up. Like, it's so easy. It's not so easy. I just said it was challenging, but coming back to a DM conversation, it's a really fun thing to figure out. Like, how do I bring it back? Oh, I just told them the price last time and maybe I should have sent them photos. So why don't I say to them, oh, I just took these photos. The light in my studio is perfect. I just wanted to send them to you. Let me know if you're still interested in this piece. It features the most stunning moonstone I've ever seen.
And don't worry about picking it back up. Like, it's all okay. And it's okay to call it out, right? Like, oh my gosh, I was just reading through our text message conversation. I sent you like a wall of text. Do you want to see some photos? Like, here we are. I sent you all these like features, and I didn't tell you that actually this piece I've been wearing around all day, and I had got so many compliments, when I was, out walking my dog. Like, whatever that is for you, don't feel like you can be kind of that like address an elephant in the room and be like, here, look at me. Like, I totally dropped the ball here. Here we were having a conversation, and it's been, 2 weeks since I've gotten back to you. I've been like super busy on the bench. Do you want to see a few of my new collections? Like, I have a piece I think you might like. So it is really, I think when we can bring like a bit more levity to it, and like really remember that this can be fun to sell in the DMs. Yes, it's challenging, and yes, there's a lot of like tips and tricks and techniques to pick up. It really is okay to drop the ball and then pick it back up. So yeah, going back through your DMs and see if there are any leads that have fallen through the cracks is a big suggestion that we have this time of year.
Yeah. And then if you're not doing email marketing right now, it's such a crucial thing to consider doing, whether you can jump on it and start emailing people this week, and this is outside of sending direct emails. This is more kind of mass communications, but align your email marketing with what you're doing on Instagram. I think is the easiest way to think about it. And this week I'm saying, show your face, connect with your audience and think about it from that perspective. So do the same thing in your email marketing. And also this year is really interesting. Meet people where they are, acknowledge that it's been a tough year, and maybe they aren't spending time with loved ones. People have a lot of weird feelings about this holiday season. It's a really great time to give an extra special gift that they can wear close to their heart, sort of thing. And maybe that's a little flowery, but thinking about kind of where everybody's mindset is and kind of meeting them there, I think is a good practice. And then also think about messaging throughout the content you're sharing this week that consider self-purchasers. Like, truly, after this year, everyone deserves a treat. And you should treat your mother, but you should also treat yourself. So thinking about how you can work that kind of messaging in, I think could be good.
Yeah, it's a good time to talk kind of about wish lists too, like what's on your wish list type things. So, I think that it is a lot of like that permission, giving people permission to browse and buy and shop for themselves. And I think especially, this is something we work with a lot, being in that higher end space. It is okay. And this is where having like a philanthropy moment or like a collection that you donate a percentage to, something that's philanthropic in your world that you care about, gives people that permission to buy. Because I think people who have not been affected by this, who still have jobs, who haven't been, financially affected, have, as you just brought up, Liz, have a lot of mixed feelings about, kind of what their role is. So the more you can share, like, I employ, local artisans, and here's who's behind my team. And, we work with, small family run businesses, and we ethically source our stones. It makes people feel good about buying, without necessarily saying someone else doesn't do that. So again, that's really where, and this is why this session is about tactical things to do right now, but it's really setting you up for 2021. Like, the more you can truly understand objections you're getting, truly understand the questions you're asked all the time, really have this cadence of preempting objections, like pre-answering questions that come up. I like to kind of use out of industry examples as much as possible, because there's so many really good ones. But it's like walking into a restaurant. We want you to kind of continue to cultivate your brand and the feeling of walking into your Instagram, or the feeling of walking into your website, just as if you're walking into the restaurant that you would have, So it's like, if you have $30 earrings on the menu and $30,000 earrings on the menu, it's very confusing for someone. So it's like, how can we continue to curate, to have people start to kind of understand the layout of your restaurant, and expect that when I walk into a certain restaurant, I know I'm going to spend at least $100 that evening. It's not, I know the restaurants where I'll spend 30, I know the restaurants where it's going to be 150. So it's like, the more we can get your brand to start to kind of self-identify, so people aren't shocked by prices, people understand what they're getting, why it's so expensive, what truly goes into handmade, domestic made, ethically made pieces. I think that's really where, where we're going for you. And again, why we started this conversation with kind of reframing, like, yes, this is about holiday sales, but really this is about setting you up for 2021 as well.
And then just make sure everything's aligned, because if you're selling giftable pieces on Instagram, and then somebody clicks through to your website and it's engagement rings as the header image, it's going to be confusing. So just make sure, and this is a good week to do it, it's not too late, just make sure everything you're putting out there is aligned, and that'll be super helpful.
Totally. Like have your sister go through it, or your aunt, or someone who's not as familiar with your brand, and say like, hey, if you click on this link, does this make sense? Or should I like do a little sprucing up of the site? And again, we know like you guys are busy, you all have families, you all have, the 2020s, like all this like complexity in your lives. But these little tweaks can really make a big difference. So that's next week, right? Just a few things for you guys this week. That's this week, you guys. Just a few things to do, but it is really simple to just kind of not break it back down, but like give you the tasks to do. Show your face, send a mass email, a one-to-many email, look through your DMs, see where you can reopen those conversations, start to think through objections you get, start to think through we're quote unquote calling it your crisis plan if things don't go according to plan, for deadlines. Like what do those things start to look like, so you're not caught off guard when people have questions, so you're not caught off guard when something doesn't with a manufacturer doesn't go as you expect. And I think doing that work this week will set you up for the next 2 weeks really well.
Definitely. Quick question from Janet, and she's asking, is there a good CRM system that you suggest, with reminders and such for customers?
I do. We'll kind of park that because that's its own rabbit hole of a conversation. I think for right now, what I always suggest is a spreadsheet with like very simple, I love to call it like the 5-minute dossier. And that's actually a beautiful segue, Janet, into what we are assigning you for next week. So we'll kind of go in that way, and I'll answer that question, but I'm going to give you a very simple answer. I do have thoughts on CRMs, but it will be a total distraction right now.
We can do a whole webinar about that because we get that question quite a bit.
We can do a year-long webinar about that. Like that is, and I think at the end of the day, I love this question from Janet, because what she's asking is like, how do I create a legacy business? Like, it's not playing the big leagues, because I know a lot of the people in this room and a lot of people watching the replay don't want to be like this huge kind of monolithic international business. But what they want is to get back to the bench, get back to the design studio. They don't want to necessarily be on the business side of the business all the time, which if you don't have kind of an organizational system, a profitable system is what I like to call them, you can't just always feel like you're losing those scraps of paper. But for right now, what I'd love you to do next week is start to think about who you want to walk through your doors. So it's like, we all have those people, when I worked kind of behind the sales desk at the retail, when I saw some clients walk in, you either had like that yes or that kind of feeling. But you knew when you had a repeat client walk in, you're like, oh my gosh, I love when this woman comes in. She loves antique tourmaline rings. I've got just the piece for her. And, my clients feel the same way. It's like when you are at a show and you see someone in the distance and they're walking towards you, you're like, yes, I love them. We are so deeply connected. We have to go out and find those people this time of year. So we won't just naturally run into them necessarily. So next week, what I'd love you to do is make a list of those people that you'd love to, your heart would do a little pitter patter because they're about to spend $20,000 with you if they were to walk in the store or give you a call. So make a list of those, specifically Janet, like make a list in an Excel spreadsheet, right? Like this is really, how can we keep this as simple as possible? Make a list of what they might be interested in, what they bought last year, how to reach out to them, and start to connect with them. Hey, I have the most stunning new piece of, a turquoise ring that would match those earrings you bought for your wife last year. Can I send you a photo? And they'll say, oh my gosh, thank you. Like, I didn't know what to get her yet. So again, this isn't too late, and I think especially if you have some local clients, this can be really, really good. And we'll talk about this in the week before Christmas as well. but it's really about starting to kind of write down. You could do sticky notes on the wall. Like we can go as low tech this year. And again, 2021 will kind of up the production of it and have those automated reminders. Um, but making sure that you're like surfacing who you'd like to see in real life.
Yeah, and one of the things I think you should try next week is to create a gift guide to share on social media and with your email list, which we kind of talked about doing last week, this week as well. Oh my gosh, that's going to get confusing.
We need a calendar.
We need a calendar. So the week of the 7th, next week, create a gift guide and really share it with your social media and your email list. But what you kind of want to do also that could be kind of tie into what Kathleen is saying is on Instagram stories, use a question box and ask your audience what designs from your collection are on their wish list. You could really use this information to help with your direct outreach and being kind of more aligned. Like, oh, this person wants this piece. Oh, they've bought from me before, their husbands bought from me before, their partners bought from me before, let me reach out to them. Like there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes research you can do with a simple question box on Instagram.
I love that example. And it's like, I mean, we just need to, keep it really simple right now. It's really easy to kind of get lost in the weeds of getting this like set up perfectly, but it's really about action. And it's really about, I think it's about imperfect action. And I think that's the biggest kind of like mindset piece I feel that I hope everyone takes away from this. I will tell you, Liz, the amount of DMs that I get that was like, oh my gosh, I did it. I reached out to my dentist, and he bought a $3,300 ring. It's like I reached out to someone I hadn't spoken with in 10 years and they bought something. I think it's really incredible. This technique is nothing new. We're just modernizing it. So it's not too late this week to do this. It's not too late next week. It's not too late the week after. Like this really is. I was actually laughing. I had a client who's does brick and mortar retail, and they are by appointment only. They have been since March. They're up significantly. It's really cool to see. And actually they love by private appointment only, but they already had someone book in for Christmas Eve. I was like, oh my God, like, look at this. Like, this is truly how last minute people are. Like he planned ahead to book in for Christmas Eve. But it starts to show you the psychology that it is, I think really people, especially this year, like I could not believe it was December 1st when I looked at the clock today.
Yeah. And I mean, traditionally in years past, the weekend before Christmas is the biggest trunk show weekend of the year. It's always the most successful from my experience. So that's something to just keep reminding yourself. There's still plenty of time. That's why it's so important to continue to remind people and have defined your final ship date, just so that, and have these, crisis management plans just in case, just because people are very last minute. And I feel like even this past weekend, people weren't quite ready to buy yet. They were like putting things on their wish list. Maybe they weren't actually making those purchases yet. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And Karen's saying it's such a relief to hear it's not too late. Other programs have convinced her that she's behind since August. And yeah, starting early is always good, but there's still time to make sales.
Mm-hmm. And I think that's like, we can, because, and like, this is why I feel so passionate about bringing everyone along the upwards cycle journey of charging higher end so they can work with fewer people and have like a really curated, beautiful relationships with those individual people. People are really forgiving, right? So like if, for example, it's too late, but they fell in love with something, next week and you can't ship it to them, you could say like, hey, what I'm going to do is record a little video and, we're going to print out this beautiful thing and you're going to like FaceTime with me, the day after Christmas. And we'll talk about this gift of custom that we've just given your partner. Like there are so many high touch ways. And again, this is why this week we want you to kind of think through this crisis plan of if someone falls in love with a piece, next week and it's out of stock or you can't ship it, or because of supply chain issues, you can't get it to them, take a deposit, right? Like get a little bit of money down that shows that, that commitment and make it really special for them. Like think through some really fun things that you can do that are that really high touch thing that's like, and I think it's like, we always just have to remember, and I think that this is kind of what Karen's saying about, sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. But it's important to be human, Like that's really, I think it's very easy to just kind of feel like we're in this grind of like sales, sales, sales and numbers and, uh, Shopify notifications and like all this kind of thing, but they're real humans on the other end. So the more we can just be, transparent and personable and human to them as well. This is where, and we didn't talk about this yet, Liz, I know we talked about it last time, but like I'm a huge fan of the voice note feature in DM in particular, especially when you're trying to convey that little bit of emotion, like when you're kind of moving into selling on benefits versus features. I always get those mixed up. When you're selling it on benefits, like, oh my gosh, you're going to love this piece. This is where video can be really helpful. Video communication and email can be really helpful. We've talked about a few different services you can use in that way. But it's really just about like knowing that people want to work with you because you're a person too. I think is really like the overarching thing of this talk we're having right now.
Yeah, people buy from people, especially when it's a big purchase. And I just want to reiterate that idea that you just said that's awesome is, if somebody's looking for custom and you can't get it done by Christmas or the holiday, like creating like a nice graphic or something that they can print out as a gift and kind of put a down payment or like a deposit on a custom piece. That's a really fun gift idea. And that's like, an experience too, which is a lot of what people are kind of craving right now.
100%. I think I was looking at my parents my parents buy me a lot of Christmas gifts, which is lovely. Like they want a real wish list, which is awesome. Like, but anyway, I digress. But I'm going to be asking, we did this really cool experience, my family and we did this like glamping kind of thing. So I'm going to be asking for a gift certificate to that because as Liz just said, like, I think we've been really hungry for experiences in past years. I feel like we've had these conversations, Liz, about like experiences are important, but this year, even more so. So when you're writing your kind of crisis plan, start to think through like, okay, could I send a box of chocolates? I'm out of this, but can I put something, for someone to unwrap that feels still really luxe, really special, and actually on the back end has this like lovely, beautiful experience attached to it as well. We had a really great question come here. How do I sound sincere with all this communication? If I didn't communicate much earlier in the year, I worry about sounding needy and opportunistic or inauthentic. And I think like a lot of this is, again, giving yourself a lot of forgiveness. Like, yes, the best time to plant a tree is like 20 years ago, but the second best time is today. So I think when you are just like connecting on that human level first, in my program, I have a client concierge and success manager. And we were joking about her father used to work in oil and he did a lot of business in the Middle East. And we were kind of joking about like in the Middle East, you always ask about someone's family first. Like you never just go right into doing business. And I think sometimes in like in the US and the same, and if you guys have watched Emily in Paris, I really liked it. Now you guys are learning a lot about me and my personal life, but I really loved Emily in
I
Paris.
watched the whole season or whatever it was.
Oh, I like binged it. It was so good. But one real takeaway I had from it was at the parties in France, and again, there's a lot of controversy around the authenticity of that show.
Controversial show to like.
Yeah. But she at the parties, if you like kind of have this visual in your head, if you've watched it, the parties, she always wanted to talk about business. And I like never forget that her boss was like, no, we don't talk business at parties. So it's how can you, and this is again, like this would have been great to do all year. This is why this conversations, we're actually slipping in your 2021 plan to do this consistently throughout the year, but connect on that human level first. Like I always suggest when I like to call them your extremely important collectors. So when you're kind of looking at your EICs, who your heart would say, oh my gosh, I'm so happy they're walking in the door or I'm seeing them at a show, friend them on Instagram, find them, on social media. If they're not, write them an email. But that is human first. Like, how are you? Or like, especially, go, if you find them on Instagram, go follow them and like their things and say like, oh my gosh, I picked up knitting too during quarantine. Or, oh my gosh, your garden looks amazing. Or the girls look so big. This is incredible. I can't believe, all these different things. Really kind of be human first before you kind of swoop in to talk about business. But there are other ways to do it too. You can say like, oh my gosh, this, tourmaline just crossed my desk and I thought you'd love it. Can I send you a picture? Like that's a way to kind of get into kind of like business first. If you don't have those other avenues to connect, that's still like consensual based, right? Like you're not saying, hey, buy this thing, I think you'd love it. You're really opening up a conversation.
And think about how you interact with people in a real life experience at a retail location or at an event, an art show, anything like that. Like people walk up and you usually mention the weather or something that's like a common experience, and you don't say, "What are you going to buy?" Like think about that. And I think you'll kind of reach your, I think you'll be able to figure out how to translate it once you really reflect on your sales style in person.
100%. And that's really the work we're asking you to do this week. Kind of like think through objections, think through, as I call it, your word wardrobe. What sets you apart? What are some of these things you like to sprinkle in, that like start to really differentiate and identify you? But I think it's okay to do it imperfectly too. Like I think that's the thing. I think people get held back because they don't want to be perceived, as opportunistic or inauthentic. But it's really when we can kind of shift sales from being a someone's winning, someone's losing, and truly into like this isn't like an art of service. This is like an act of service when you're selling. Like truly, there could be someone who doesn't know what to get their partner, and they got an engagement ring from you, and they're like super stumped. They don't want to go out to buy something. They don't want to go get something stupid and generic. They really like want this to be like, their wife has 3 kids and works full time and has been just doing like all this incredible stuff. And they really want something super special for this person. And you have that super special thing. And if you aren't sharing that with that person, you're like robbing them of this like really joyful connection moment. And I think, what 2020 has shown me a lot of things. A lot of Netflix. I've seen a lot of Netflix.
So much Netflix.
I've seen a lot of Netflix. Emily in Paris, but it's also shown me like at the core, what is jewelry, right? Like, why do we buy it if we're not seeing people? Why do we buy it? Why do we gift it? And I think it really is because it's so meaningful, and I think that, we're not lecturing you because you guys are like toothpaste salespeople, right? Like you're not selling like something terrible. You're selling something that like really is such a happy, special moment for people. So I think the more you can kind of like process through, and I think we'll do a lot more of this, Liz, next session in January, where you can start to like process through your own feelings about sales and being salesy and what it feels to be inauthentic, and kind of like almost heal some of those like traumas you've had of bad sales experiences. I think our industry, unfortunately, is rife with hard selling. I think a lot of people learn to hard sell, and then they have a really hard time kind of recovering from some of that learning because it felt so inauthentic to them. But what we're teaching you is really to just be consistently opening conversations with other people.
And the kind of soft sell, the relationship building will pay off again and again in the long term. So it's not just about this holiday season, it's about building these relationships forever. Dorothy left a Q&A that is a really good point. Male customers have confessed to me that they get stressed out by too many choices. They like to, shop really quickly and have less choice, less stress. And I just want to point out that like women shop that way too. Like there's so much to purchase from, and I think we all experienced this past weekend of all of the options. I got paralyzed by all of the options and didn't buy anything. So when you think about kind of what your website looks like, what you're presenting as holiday gifts, make sure you're doing it in a really thoughtful, curated way. And again, going back to like making sure everything aligns. And that's something you're going to want to check all of the time forever, but check in with that again this week.
I love that too. And that's really where I feel, again, just so strongly about moving into that higher, like that upward cycle where you really do get to know their tastes and their why. So you can say like, hey, male customer, like, I think you would love this piece because this is what you bought last year and your wife loved it. Or I think you'd love this piece if it's someone new because you gave me your wife's social profile and I did a little light stalking and she loves like Liz has such beautiful dark coloring or hair, and like you look so nice in that color top you're wearing. So it's like, if I were to stalk Liz, I would say like gold is going to be what would look really, really great on her. And this is why, because, she has this beautiful long hair. So when you can, again, like it's this like idea and like it's this whole mindset shift around it's not volume, it's actually the opposite of volume. People have, in this information age, we have access to everything. We can get anything we want, but it's really what people are super hungry for is old school techniques. Like they're hungry for old school client concierge, like saying, here are two choices, and I think you would shoot, your partner would love this because, like, and I think that's the piece people miss, that like connection. It's so obvious to us because we live in this world, but for someone, a layperson, it's like, because she has blue eyes and this would be great, and she often wears like v-necks, and I think this necklace would be perfect. I think actually like white gold with this sapphire would be perfect because last time I saw her, she had on this beautiful blue cashmere. Like, if you're not doing that because, you're leaving them to kind of spin out, as you were saying, Liz. I also didn't buy anything this weekend. I honestly, I didn't even look at my phone. Like I had to kind of check out because it was like so much coming at me. So really starting to think, when you do these like little dossiers of the clients you'd love to see, start to connect what they would like and also why they would like it. So you can feel, really authentic when you are reaching out to them.
And one more note I want to make about next week that you had mentioned was like privately inviting people to Zoom chats or phone calls. And think about how that private invitation, even if you're, I say this all the time, if you're going to do a live event, inviting people directly via DM to come watch your live event is a great idea, because a personal invite versus a group text is a very different feeling.
Totally. I love that you brought that up. And I wrote that specifically as an example in our notes. It's like, I actually had this experience, like this visceral experience of being, I have a young son, as you guys know, and I got invited to like a group birthday thing. It was going to be a really, like, I think it was all pre-pandemic. Gosh, that's crazy. But it was like this thing in the mountains, and I would have loved to go, but it was this group text. There were like 16 other people on it. And I was like, I didn't know a lot of the people, like all those anonymous things. And I knew it was just such a different ask than if she had reached out to me, like, hey, Kathleen, I'd love to see you and your son. It'd be super fun. Like, our sons are around the same age. It'd be so meaningful if you could come because I know you love the mountains, right? Like, it's the exact same formula we're telling you here. But it's that difference where it is like, I would have showed up. I didn't go for a variety of reasons, but I would have been much more like apt to go if I had been invited personally. And I think that this, we're talking about like the personalization of kind of websites and curation, but it's also the same. Like, we've kind of, I don't know a better way to put it. We've gotten lazy is kind of like the only kind of blunt way to say it, but we've gotten lazy in just our mass marketing, that we've fallen out of like the direct hard work of relationship building. And
Because it's hard work.
It's hard work.
Yeah. So, like, I've seen some great posts that were like, set up a Zoom consultation. We're offering Zoom consultations, or, private showings and stuff like that. And that's great. And some people might be attracted to that. But until you reach out specifically to your target list, or people you think might be interested, you're not going to have huge success in that.
Totally. And that why. And I think it's like that balance between, and this is like a big thing I teach and am passionate about, is like, we need things templatized. We can't just be staring at a blank screen, but there has to be that level of like, I think you would love this piece because, like, there has to be that connection, that like, what's in it for me kind of thing, that old school clienteling that you would get if you were a neighborhood jeweler who knew your clients, because you saw them at baseball games and, at the local grocery store. That's what people are really hungry for, especially younger people, older people. Like, I think that's really what's missing, kind of, especially it's been missing for a while, but it's so hyper like focused now that people are really craving that human connection. So the more you can invite people to a private Zoom, but not just invite them, say, because I have some like new turquoise pieces I think you would love, and I want to show, like, I want to just show them to you before I list them on social media. Like, making sure you're always kind of including that next level of depth will make it feel like it kind of prevents it from being inauthentic. And I think that's the thing, like, we're kind of taught volume, but this is really about, getting your clients to understand that it's quality over quantity, and you also understanding that it's quality of relationships over quantity of likes, of followers, which I feel like is something I hear you, just
Followers don't matter.
beautifully repeat all the time.
Followers do not matter. Followers don't matter. So,
Hashtag.
um, great. So let's talk about the week before Christmas.
Okay,
There's still time.
there's still time. It's not too late.
Yeah. So on Instagram, you're going to continue to focus on in stock pieces. And remember, as you're featuring jewelry images, which is really important to showcase the pieces you're selling, your collection, make sure you're sharing why these are so special and why they'd be great for gifting. So keep that in mind as you're writing copy. Having strong call to actions, which everybody's probably heard me talk about before as well. Is really important to consider when you're creating this copy as well. Tell people what to do. Send you a direct message if you're interested. There's loads of great calls to actions that you can consider, and I'll list them in the notes when I send this out. And then, remember to send that last e-blast to your email list to remind them of your last ship date and offer a phone call or a Zoom call for last minute gift ideas, because again, we had mentioned several times that it is, people do shop last minute, there's still time. And then also another idea for social media, and I think Kathleen mentioned this before, to kind of tie in the offline and online, is think about showing some behind the scenes of your life and what you're doing to prep for the holiday season. Are you putting up a tree? Are you baking cookies? Like, sharing some of this to kind of put the vibe of your content into the holiday spirit.
I love that example. And I think it's like, there's so much about like realizing that when you're an artist, at the level of everyone here in this room, people don't see the world as you do. So I think like, and I think of this, I worked for a jeweler and I worked out of her home, and like every day I felt like it was just, I wanted to see how she laid her breakfast table. Like her breakfast table was beautiful. And the way she drank her cappuccino was like really beautiful. And like walking by, she had two children walking by their rooms, like they had the most beautiful rooms, and like just everything she touched was really beautiful. She wouldn't know that, just as you don't necessarily know that, but people love to see that. They love to kind of see kind of how are you in like Melissa Caron, one of my students, does such a nice job with this. She does in her stories all the time. She's always kind of showcasing her evening walks. So you get to see this like lens that then her work is very natural and very kind of viney, and you get to see like, oh, I understand why she's influenced by that, because she's in Vancouver, so she's like in all this beautiful area. So you get to kind of connect it behind the scenes. And I think I love to, in the methodology I teach, I love to kind of call it your magazine of you, right? Like choose a few. You don't have to share everything. And I think that's what gets overwhelming to people. Like you can make some conscious decisions of like, these things I don't feel comfortable sharing, these feel off limits for me. But you could share your cooking, right? Like you could share your, Liz, you did so much of this over the summer, your garden, your dogs. And those are the ththings that people really love to see.
And people still ask me about my dogs sometimes before they ask me about myself, so these things kind of stick with people. And I love the artist's point of view. To your point, Kathleen, an artist I follow today posted, as I said, it snowed here this morning, these beautiful like footsteps in the snow, and like kind of saw it in a really artistic way and just snapped a photo. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's very inspiring, even though it's just footsteps in the snow. So remember that your point of view and your perspective is really special and really important.
100%. And I think it's like, this is a year long of work, just like setting up the CRM, like kind of uncovering your own point of view and like feeling really comfortable in sharing it. And like, there's a lot of self-worth stuff that we'll talk about next month about pricing and like that kind of self-worth. But I think continuously people are nosy AF, people want to kind of see like what's in the studio. And I think that's really where, when you start to show this piece takes, 30 hours to carve, or like this piece has been, I've had these stones in my desk for 10 years and I've never known what to do with them, and then I finally found the perfect piece and now they're in these earrings. When you tell that story, someone, it's like we were walking into the restaurant where you expect to do the tasting menu for $350 versus something that's mass produced and doesn't have meaning, intention, depth to it. And I think that's really where you can like preemptively deal with objections by sharing that behind the scenes, by showing what it really truly means to be artisan made.
Yeah, definitely. And then here, this week before Christmas is when you can offer, the gift of custom and gift certificates. These are great last minute gift ideas. If you can't get something in the mail in time, or whoever's purchasing the piece can't decide.
Totally. And like think through again, I was just reading our notes. I was like, oh,
Yeah,
we have like, we're gonna have to clean up our notes a little before we send them to you
yeah,
because these
right.
are like
So
very
do that.
notes. I was like, I did not finish my sentence. Um, but starting to think through like those last minute shoppers, like make it, again, working in retail, like New Christmas Eve, we would stay open till 7, 8, 9 p.m. to work with those last minute shoppers who just, again, like hadn't thought this through. Um, would buy anything. Also, something to keep in mind, and I think that this is something that really gets missed, is the week between Christmas and New Year's is one of the busiest engagement ring periods, like ever. Because, again, this is like fairly heteronormative, but if there is someone who thought they would get and this kind of even goes into like, yeah, anyway, this is like philosophical around engagements in general and the pressure we put on them. But if you haven't been proposed to on Thanksgiving, maybe you're in a partnership and the one person who is going to be receiving the proposal thought that they would get proposed to on Thanksgiving. It didn't happen. Christmas morning, it didn't happen. Um, I was going to reference another like terrible movie that I recently. Oh, did you guys watch Holiday? Did you watch Holiday,
I
Liz?
watched Holiday.
That woman at the New Year's Eve party. Remember the woman who she spilled the dress, like the wine on her dress?
Hmm.
And she was like expecting to get proposed to on New Year's Eve. So there's this like, if it hasn't happened on Thanksgiving and it didn't happen Christmas morning, there's this like week period where, again, when I worked in retail, we joked, we were like, you can sell New Year's Eve, like the day of New Year's Eve, you can sell any engagement ring. So if that's your business, and again, you're doing more custom types, like, is there something, can you order something to do a stand-in ring? Like, and then on the back end, do a gift of custom. Can you coordinate a champagne and flowers drop off? And then, you guys do a FaceTime video after to pick out the ring together. Like there's so much creativity we can do. And I think, to Karen's point, like it's easy to feel like you're behind right now. But you're not, right? Like there's so much potential, there's so much possibility still, and there's so much creativity that people are looking for as well. Like people are, if they align with your values, if they align with your ethics, people are willing to wait for something that has meaning and feels really special. I think it's actually like I feel like the slow food movement has kind of come up, and like the slow, all these different kind of slow movements. And what I feel very passionate about is like slow tech, right? Like slow jewelry movements. Like how can you bring them into the journey with you so that when they say they want to buy from you, they're happy to put down $1,000 deposit and wait 12 weeks, right? Like how can we get like, and again, that's why I feel like I'll stand on the soapbox forever about this upward spiral. Because when you are charging those higher prices, it's so much easier to take your time. And actually, those clients typically are easier to work with, we find as well.
Yeah, and also something to consider about the week between Christmas and New Year's that I was just thinking about is if you're selling to self purchasers, I mean, maybe they are feeling relaxed and cozy and happy and want to treat themselves. I think that there's a lot of missed opportunity in that week.
And January is the same. And Liz, I would even push that a little further, is they didn't get what they wanted.
Yeah,
Like
that too.
the self
Or
purchaser did not, like no one thought about them. I just watched like an Instagram reel that was like, fill your wife's stocking, right? Like she did all the kids' stockings. Like you better put some things that she'd really love in her stocking. And it's kind of that same thing. Like, again, this is like a very heteronormative kind of scenario that we're putting out. But if the woman's been coordinating kind of behind the scenes all the kids' gifts and all these like different holidays and meals and things like that, she might come to the week after Christmas, she might come to January and say like, now I have time to kind of focus on my own, a piece I've been wanting, an heirloom redesign I've been loving to do, or something along those lines. So I think it's important. Oh yeah, Dorte is saying 100% self purchasers who didn't get what they want in January, right? Like it's a really great time. And I think I think when we kind of are in this sprint up to the holidays, like I know I used to get so sick working retail, like so sick, because I would be working like 50, 60-hour weeks, and we were open all these extra hours, and we just like had no momentum. So if you can actually like preserve yourself and like be at a good clip, but then in that last week when everyone else has kind of turned off their steam, if you can have a few pre-planned things for after Christmas into January, into February, that gives people permission to self-purchase. And even, depending on your brand, calls it out like, hey, did you not get what you wanted? Like, let's chat. Let's get on a Zoom call. I'll show you some beautiful baubles.
I love that. There's a lot of opportunity there. So what questions do you guys have about this? Are you feeling good? Are we all feeling good? Are we all going to show our face on Instagram this week?
We'll be watching you guys.
I'm going to be watching. I would love for you to tag me. I will share it.
Liz, you're so good at that. I just watched all your series of your amazing collective that you have, where you were sharing a lot of it was so beautiful to see.
You should try it. You would be great on camera. But yeah, that's taken a lot of encouragement. So I have a group called the Stay Gold Collective for $40 a month. It's chats like this every week, and then just ongoing support. And I encourage all of them to talk to the camera. And some of them did, and some of them I'm still nudging. So there'll be more of that coming soon.
I love it. We'll see some hands. Like, it's really, and it is like, this is work. And like, I also kind of want to like zoom out and like give you again that forgiveness, and almost this like, this is work of generations. Like, if you don't feel comfortable showing your face, it's okay. Like, we kind of have to figure out, yes, we can just say like, do it. But a lot of the times we also need to sometimes uncover what's holding you back. I think on our last session, we talked about unfriending people who you don't want to be seen in front of. Like, there is like, I think if I don't like this thing, like feel the fear and do it anyway. Like, yes, there are some times in business we do have to do that and show our faces, but I think it's okay too to say like, what will make me feel comfortable? Is it going live with a friend? Is it just showing my hand to begin with and talking over it? Mm-hmm. Is it, Katie Bay listening to you is like getting a shoulder rub. Nice. Beth is saying, talking to the camera is hard work. Like, figure out what you need to do to prep. Are you a person who loves notes? Do you need to schedule in like a walk before you go live? Do you need to schedule in downtime after? Like, recognize that it's work that we're telling you to do, and it's not easy, but it's worth it. Like, I don't want to like just put a platitude on top of it, but like also know a lot of the people in the room are lots of times the first female in their lineage to run a business, to have their own wealth, like to be showing up in this really public way. And, I think a lot of the fears are rooted in reality. What are people going to think of me? All these different things. So I think the more you can do both, be like, okay, cool. These are the things that are holding me back from maybe showing up on camera. And like, you don't like the way you look too old, you don't like your lighting, you don't, believe in your pricing, like whatever that is, don't just shove those away, like process through them. Like, maybe you, like, I love the morning pages. Maybe you, before you're going to go live, you write 2 pages and like get it all out. And then you can show up a little bit more like authentically in those lives.
Yeah, definitely.
I got a lot to say on that. That could be another word.
I know, it's the whole mindset thing. I've done, even in the past, like, 8 months, I've done probably thousands of lives, putting my face on camera, different types of events where I'm hosting or asking questions or showing my face. And it is still hard. It is still challenging. And I think we just need to remember that this year has been challenging. And putting yourself out there in general is challenging. So it does take practice, and it does get easier, but it's still hard. And it's the same goes for like directly outreaching people, and putting yourself out there in that manner too. It's not easy. It does get easier, but it's always going to be hard.
It is also important to checkmate yourself, like where you tell people you're going to do it. And like, I found that this can be really helpful, because like, you'll still feel those nerves, but you have to do it because you've said, I'm going to go live at 4. It's really important, if you know yourself to be that kind of person who might just like put it off until the house is clean, or put it off till you get a manicure, or put it off till you get your hair done, or like put it off till this new collection is complete. Checkmating yourself and being like, at 4 p.m. on Tuesday, I will go live. And then you just like have to, like Liz and I, like we had to click live today. You guys were all here.
And you know, if we didn't tell everybody about this, we might have canceled, you
I
know.
think we probably would have. Liz and I probably would have been like, you know what, let's
Before.
just do it next month.
Yeah, totally.
I'm doing an invite only or application only private training on 3 ways to fill the virtual room. So if you guys want information on that, DM me and I'll tell you more. But it goes, I woke up in the middle of the night. It's on December 10th. I woke up in the middle of the night being like, oh my God. Like, but I've already checkmated myself. It has to happen. We actually have quite a few applications. We've a few accepted people who will be attending. We have like 50 applications already. And it's like, okay, I have to do it. Right. Like, so it's just to say that it's like, it gets easier, but it never gets like, but I mean, that's the same for me in person, Liz. Like times we've spoken in person together, it's still that same kind of like feeling, right? Like, so I think we just associate it like, oh, it shouldn't feel uncomfortable to do this. Or it shouldn't feel funny or inauthentic, or I should just be more natural. I'll wait till I'm more natural. But I always like to say, like, if your first video is the production quality you want, then you've started way too late. It's like you have to, like, we've all started as beginners. And we've kind of moved into, you know, different lighting and different cameras. But you know, Liz, my camera, I like this new camera. It's just like,
Got my ring light, so I was futzing with my lighting during this thing. So I'm not super satisfied, but you know, we're still here and we're chatting and we're connecting with people, which is, remember what the heart of it is, which is to connect with your audience, and connect with clients and potential clients. In the Q&A, I'm doing live Instagram, live Facebook every week, but have been unsuccessful at getting people there, or to come to my private Zoom chats. Invite people directly. So like if you're going live, feel free to shoot me or Kathleen a DM and let us know you're going live. If I can make it, I'll be there, sort of thing. And think about other people you can just directly invite. Think about clients you could directly invite, or people you've been DMing with who maybe haven't purchased a piece yet. That's always, you know, just putting out that mass marketing isn't necessarily going to get people there.
Totally. And then also the same goes after. We have a whole framework we teach. It's like where we talk about like pre-event. So like Dorte, like how to pre-invite both privately and publicly invite people to these events. It's really important to connect that why. Like I'm inviting you because I'll be showcasing, you know, some, you know, you have a like 3-foot ring, like I'll be showcasing this and I know you had some questions about it, so I wanted to show you this and these knot earrings that I have, like those different because you've like loved them, you know, because this is what you bought in the past and this collection really reminds you of something you would love. Like it's always that because. And think of me receiving this group text of 16 people where it's like, come do this thing with us, versus like, I'd love to see you, Kathleen, because you know, I really value our friendship and I think it would be really fun to get our boys who are the same age together. Like it's that because that's often missing when we are doing these private invites. And then, you know, and again, this is a whole nother, you know, a year-long seminar of what to do after an event, right? Like it's really, don't expect, and this is a little bit of mindset expectation setting, don't expect people to buy from your live event. If no one buys from your live event, it's not a failure. Because what you're going to do, and this is like the hard work of selling virtually, you're going to follow up with each of them. Like, hey, what did you, you know, this is the piece I thought you would like the most in that collection. Like, what was your favorite piece in the collection? Like, you know, those hoop earrings would be so good with the like ear stack you're building. You know, what did you think about like this new pieces I had? Like you're really connecting post sale or post event to ensure that that's where people are going to be having, you know, to circle back to the beginning, having those objections, like asking those questions of you.
Yeah. So any final thoughts, Kathleen, for the group?
No, I wish we've got to do one of these that's like a day long, Liz.
Oh
We
my
have
God.
so much to say.
Just people can just pop in and out.
Yeah,
we'll
you just like
all day
we'll just share our like behind the scene notes and like we'll just hit like share and Liz and I will just talk for a day. And we'll take a lot of breaks.
Oh, Susan's saying she'll send us food.
Thank you. I love it. It'll be like a marathon binge watching Liz and I just think like the biggest thing is that it's not too late and you have all of the skills to show up imperfectly. I think it's really, one thing I ask my students, especially this time of year, is like, how do you want to feel, when the year wraps up? Like, what are the words? Do you want to feel connected, like grateful, valued, prepared? Like, kind of how do you want that to feel? And like, kind of pouring that over this whole thing, and really just remembering that people are craving what you have. They want what you like. It's not, you're not taking something away from them when they buy from you. You're actually giving them something that's tremendously more valuable than the money they're giving you. You're like giving them art. You're a modern day alchemist. Like, you guys are literally alchemists. So just kind of having some of that, like those things too, and then also come up with your crisis plan.
Yeah, so I will be sending out the replay and the cleaned up to-do list for the next 3 weeks. So you guys will be all prepared. Talk to the camera. I'm just going to say that one more time. Kathleen, tell us again how people can get in touch with you for your next event.
Yeah, so on December 10th, as I just told you guys, it is happening, right? This is like behind the scenes. I've
Y'all
checkmated
know.
myself because I would have pushed it off to January. I am running a application only private masterclass on 3 ways to fill your virtual room with affluent, ready to buy collectors. So you stop doom scrolling on Instagram and figuring out what your competition is doing that you are not doing, and come up with a plan for 2021. So it's going to be going through my entire framework, like exactly the profitable systems we talk about, the that I think Karen asked about, or Janet asked about. It goes through perfect pricing, and we'll talk about like your virtual atelier, like how to kind of actually show up to your shop. So we'll be talking about all of those elements and how they all fit together. So if you are interested in that, just shoot me a DM. The application is actually also on my Instagram. So you can just go ahead and apply right there. And if you're a good fit, my team will reach out, and we'll just start up a conversation with you guys. And it'd be super fun to have you on that call.
That's great. And Estelle, we are definitely doing a pricing webinar next year. I'll let you know as soon as we've confirmed a date. We might have already confirmed a date, actually.
Yeah,
so
our calendars.
I'll get back to you on that, but we're definitely doing it in January. If you want content like this weekly and more consistently, definitely check out the Stay Gold Collective. Feel free to shoot me a DM about that. And then in the follow-up email to this webinar, I'll get you the information about that and Kathleen's program. But our DMs are open. We're always glad to chat. So if you're taking these steps and doing these items, or you're talking to the camera, or you just got some great success from doing one of the things we've mentioned here, let us know. We would absolutely love to hear.
Yeah. And yeah, it's super fun. And I think the more, definitely what we'll talk a lot about in that pricing is like how to like sell yourself on your pricing. Like, I really think it's like truly when we can start to like look at some of these shadow things that come up for us. Like, I love that we heard like, I don't want to, bother people. I don't want to, come off as inauthentic. Like, I really want to be, because I know everyone in this room is like very genuine, very authentic. So it really is like, how can we just, show you, like hold up a mirror and show you how, like, I feel like I'm like Glenda the Good Witch. I'm like, look, you always could go home. Like, look, you have everything you need here. It's really just about kind of understanding what's holding you back, and then, really building up that momentum and having a roadmap like we're giving you today.
Totally. And if you just need a pep talk or some words of support, just let me know. I'm always here for that. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Kathleen, again, for all of your great wisdom. And we'll be back in January, and look out in your inboxes tomorrow for a replay and all of the information we talked about.
Yeah, I love chatting with you, Liz. And I hope you have a lovely week, and you and I will talk. So great. I love seeing all the chats over there. Excellent. Lots of love. I always like to do this. Let's like hug.
Hugs.
Giving you a hug.
Hug everyone.
You. Hugs to everyone. Lots of peace. I hope everyone has a peaceful evening.
Yes, agreed. Okay. Thank you so much. I'll talk to you soon.
Bye, guys.
Bye.